you've mentioned so many different ways that people can shift. But how can you, if we are aware of our like patterns or triggers and everything, and I kind of like asked this before, like how can we truly like get unstuck from those things? Like how can we truly let go? It's like a matter of honoring and just accepting, right?
Radical
But like how do
acceptance.
you move? Yeah.
I think
Radical
radical
acceptance.
acceptance is the most powerful mindfulness tool, and particularly for people like myself, and I would wonder for you also, like, high success, high achievement oriented people, like I'm a change oriented person. Like I'm like, all right, if I can change it, if I can fix it, great. So radical acceptance is something that, like, when I learned about it as a clinician and like when I started implementing it with patients, like you have to implement it in your own life. Like you have to, or you can't teach it. And this idea of letting go is not giving up, I think, is really, really important. You're not giving
Oh,
up
that's
on
huge. Yeah.
yourself or on a goal if you let go of the like death grip you have on a particular outcome. And so
Mhm.
if there are things that you want in your life, you radically accept limitations. You don't radically give up. You don't just stop giving a fuck, right? And so radical acceptance actually allows you to let go of the suffering, which is usually the anger or the anxiety, and feel the actual sadness or loss without having a death grip on a certain outcome. It allows you to
Mm.
release the death grip on an outcome so that you can get to the same general vicinity, but you don't have to climb up the, whatever Spanish steps in Rome. You can get there by climbing up the Eiffel Tower. Like, meaning it's the gateway into being able to have flexibility, I think. And
Mm.
I think that is a practice. That is not a one and done thing. That is something you need to ask yourself
Oh,
all the time. Am I radically accepting this?
yes, 100%. I'm like thinking back to wedding planning. We've had so many plot twists and pivots. Like it's been really,
Literally.
really hard to like embrace flow and honestly. And I'm like, I feel like I'm a rather chill bride for the most part, but it's ignited things inside of me that I'm like, oh my God, there's so many plot twists. And I'm like, sometimes I just have to like let what is, like what will be kind of a thing, and like really let things flow. But you mentioned my final question. You mentioned high performance New Yorkers. I feel you work with a lot of high performance urban dwellers and just high performance entrepreneurs. What are some of the practices and tools, some of the top tools that you provide these types of clients that you've really seen help cultivate like calm and mindfulness
Sure.
overall?
So it's really like, I think a lot of teaching the observe, describe, and participate that comes along with mindfulness allows you the opportunity to jump into other things. There's a lot of what we call distress tolerance. So, how do I
Mm.
intentionally shift my focus and my awareness away from the distressing thought or the distressing physiological sensation for just enough time to practice just getting through that moment without going with the habitual stress pattern response, right? So lots of, how do you sit with something, setting a timer, having a list of things that you can gently move your attention to. And
Mm.
I don't care what those things are as long as they're not unsafe. The goal is to practice being able to understand when and how you can utilize this like stepping back, the sort of acceptance of a moment, if you will. So there's a
Mm.
lot of distress tolerance. There's a lot of talking about radical acceptance of like anything and everything from, God forbid, a death to getting stuck in traffic to like an email being sent to the wrong person. And I would say that another huge one for all New Yorkers is a lot of interpersonal effectiveness. What are we
Mm.
looking for out of our relationships? How are we showing up? What are our expectations? How do expectations in general get in the way of us feeling connected to other people or getting what we want and giving what we want to other people?
Expectations are huge. That's
Yep.
like such a huge part of that's a huge thing that I'm working on right now, personally, professionally, wedding, everything.
Yep.
Okay, do you have time for a face off, which is quick
Yeah,
fire
let's do
questions that are
it.
meant to be answered in 2 to 3 questions? Okay, I'm going to throw a new one in there just because this might be more than 2 to 3 sentences, but I'm so curious what your morning and evening practices are,
Sure.
being in the work that you do.
Yeah. Okay. So, morning, I will always set an alarm for the same time because I'm a big believer in certain sleep hygiene things. So you
Mm.
have to wake up within the same 4 hours every single day, 2 hours before, 2 hours after your average time. Otherwise, it fucks with your circadian rhythm, and my circadian rhythm is fucked up enough. So I set an alarm for the same exact time. Usually, what I attempt to do is get up. I have a hatch thingy now. I love my hatch thingy. It's like changed. I like, if I never have to hear my phone alarm ever again, it will be too soon. Like, so I have my hatch. It has this little like flute sounds and it's light that comes on. And
It's
then I
amazing.
attempt to get up. I always will like let my dog out of her crate. I'll walk her. That's like my immediate sort of automatic ritual is like, and then I try to go to Pilates class. I really like Pilates, and I am not a nighttime person anymore. I used to be, but now I'm like an 8 p.m. kind of girly. And so I would say my routine really focuses on being, keeping a steady, consistent wake up time and giving
Mm.
myself many hours before I start seeing patients. I am not a person who can get up at 8 and start seeing patients at 8:15. They will not get the best of me and I will not be okay. So, in terms of my morning practice, that's really, for me, it's wake up time, consistency, slowing myself down enough to give myself space. For the evening, I've tried a lot of different stuff. I've journaled before. I have a hard time kind of sticking to some of those more traditional routines. They don't speak to me as much. What I like to do is finish work, eat, have a sweet treat. I always have a sweet, like it's either frozen yogurt, ice cream in the freezer, cookies. Like I have something, I just like, it's sort of like a down regulation for me. And then I like literally get into bed, I change into pajamas, get into bed, generally speaking by 9 p.m. and talk to two people that I love, my boyfriend and either my
Oh,
sister or my best friend. Like, and those are and then I put on my audiobook and I fall asleep and I set a timer on it so that I know that I'm not listening to it for the whole entire night. And that's my routine. I'm very to me, routines are all about consistency. It can be anything as long as it's consistent.
totally. They act as pillars of as your like in your life. I love that you call two people that you love. I feel like I'm really trying to foster just deeper connections. I feel like I've been in my little silo for the past few years and I'm like ready to break through and like
Yeah.
really just nurture the relationships because I don't know, I feel like I need to get back. Also receive too. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's both. It's both. Like giving
Yeah.
to people and like listening to somebody is just as like restorative as like sharing something or getting something from
Mm,
that person, in my opinion.
totally.